Greetings. My name is Nancy Abrams-Dreyer, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement in the West. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Sip, Savor, and Celebrate. I'm delighted to be joined by Master Sommelier Nova Cadamatre, a 2006 graduate from the Viticulture and Enology program in CALS, and Chef Robert Sulatycky. 2020 has been an extraordinary year, and as it draws to a close, it's time to celebrate and look forward to happy times. They will be sharing some tips and advice on entertaining, even for the smallest of crowds. Nova joins us from Napa Valley, where she serves as the Senior Director of Winemaking for Constellation Brands, overseeing the winemaking teams at several vineyards, including Robert Mondavi, Schrader, and Franciscan. In 2017, she became the first woman winemaker in the US to earn the world's most difficult wine certification, the Master of Wine. Nova is also the owner of Trestle 31, a winery based in the Finger Lakes. When I asked Nova to share a memorable experience at Cornell, she remarked that she was most inspired by the first wines class that she took. Dr. Terry Acri explained how personal the aroma memories are and how your personal memories really influence how you experience wine. While based in the Napa area, Chef Robert is joining us from Los Angeles. For those of you fascinated by cooking competitions, Chef Robert has taken part in the Bocuse d'Or, the most rigorous culinary competition in the world, held every 2 years in Lyon, France. He's been a competitor and most recently served as the head coach of Team USA in 2019 and on deck for 2021. He is also passionate about wine and serves as the managing director of Mithra Winery on Mount Veeder in Napa Valley. Chef Robert is the president and co-founder of iQKitchen, a technology company that has developed simple and intuitive app-based solutions for kitchen challenges. He graduated from the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology with a diploma in culinary arts. He thoroughly enjoyed his time at college and remains connected by giving lectures and classes at his alma mater. Nova and Chef Robert want to be sure to address your questions, so please feel free to enter them in the chat window, and we'll get to as many of them as we are able. Welcome, Nova and Robert. Nova, I'm going to ask you to kick this off and help set the table.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Robert and I are so excited to be part of this event with y'all. I just wanted to take you through some really simple aperitifs that if you're cooking or you just want to make one evening a little more festive during the season, these are super simple aperitifs that we can work through here. So the first one is a very traditional Kir Royale, and whenever I'm in Paris and you have an aperitif, that is my go-to. So this one, I really love the Cassis liqueur from the Finger Lakes Distilling Company. This is just delicious. You can use Chambord as well, but I really love the Crème de Cassis because it is very, very traditional. I found one of my old sparkling wines that I made at home for this tonight. You don't have to have anything super fancy, but it is classically made with champagne. But you can use any really high-end dry sparkling wine. And I just like to garnish it with a little bit of a lime there for that. If you are non-alcoholic, there's a very easy aperitif for that as well. I'm personally breastfeeding right now, so I'm not consuming a lot of alcohol. So during my pregnancy and my breastfeeding time, I really looked for a lot of ways to enjoy non-alcoholic cocktails at home. So this one starts off with just a base of cranberry juice. You get a little bit of ginger ale here. I like Canada Dry because it does have the real ginger flavor in there. And then I've discovered this great non-alcoholic spirit called Seedlip, and this is their spice. And you can just top off a little bit with that, and this has a little bit of bubbles and a little bit of spice character from both the ginger ale and from the spice. And you can throw a little lime on that, and that one makes a super nice non-alcoholic cocktail. So either way you enjoy it, it really works for whoever happens to be at the house and whatever stage of your life you're in. So that's your aperitif, and sip away while Robert takes us through an amazing appetizer.
Well, those sound great, Nova. Thank you for that. So tonight or this evening, we're going to do a very what I think is a simple dish. It's just seared scallops and with some cauliflower, and we're going to roast the cauliflower, roast the scallops in the pan. And you can actually use salmon for this if you want. If you're vegetarian, you can use butternut squash. You can just punch out a piece of butternut squash or celery root. It's just roasted in the pan, and we're going to build a very simple tarragon white wine butter sauce with it. So I'm gonna walk you through that, and I do have a recipe, and I think the recipe was sent out, and I'm going to do my very, very best to follow the recipe that I wrote. The recipe does work, but when I am cooking at home, I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants and cook. So that's what I have my recipe on my phone. So if you see me glancing down, I've got my cheat sheet. So the first thing, and I've got all the ingredients here, and I'll try to show them all on camera. So the first thing I did a few hours ago, is we've got some golden raisins, and I macerated those with some Sauvignon Blanc. And so those raisins are dry and sort of sucking in all that beautiful wine flavor, and we want that in the sauce. We're going to strain those raisins, and we're going to use the Sauvignon Blanc in the sauce. That's what we're going to reduce down. So I've just got that off camera there, just straining. And these are the scallops. Scallops available really at any grocery store. If you can't get fresh, then you want to look for IQF, individual quick frozen, and just thaw them in your cooler overnight. You'll find sometimes on scallop, there might be a little muscle on the side. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a little tiny muscle that you actually peel off the scallop, and that little piece can be tough. So go through your scallops, and it's hard to see, but it's a little different color. So I've peeled all the muscles off those scallops. We're going to turn our pan on. I'm using a nice induction burner, which is very fast. We're going to go at medium-high heat on that. So medium-high that's going to be 350, 375. We're going to bring that up to temperature, and we're going to put a little bit of oil. We've just got vegetable oil. I hope I'm following my recipe. We've got a little bit of vegetable oil in the pan. And while that's heating up, we're going to season our scallops. And you'll notice that I'm going to be quite liberal with that seasoning. And we're going to do both sides. That salt, and I've got fresh cracked black peppercorns. And we're going to turn the scallops over. And I've got the scallops on a little bit of paper towel. So that's soaking up the moisture from the scallops in order to get nice color or nice caramelization on your scallops, or really anything you're sauteing, is it needs to be nice and dry. If you're doing a steak or a chicken breast in a pan at home, you want to pat it dry. That dry surface on your protein is going to give nice caramelization. So our pan is coming up to temp. I'm gonna season the other side of our scallops. I think, Nova, when you and I have cooked together, I think maybe we've done scallops. Did we do scallops once or twice?
We've done scallops at least once, yeah.
I think so, right?
It's been so long, though. I mean, it's been forever.
It's been too long, yeah. So they're nicely seasoned. Our pan feels, it's almost there. And to be successful cooking, if you're doing cooking for yourself, cooking for, your better half at home, in order to be successful, it's all about the preparation. So, the shallots, I've got the shallots chopped. I'm going to show you how we're going to slice the cauliflower in this recipe. That's a little bit of an interesting step, so we'll do that on camera. But I've got everything else really done. I've got my butter and my shallots chopped. The tarragon is pre-chopped. Again, I macerated the raisins. So now it's just really cooking at the last minute. So our pan is smoking ever so slightly. And I'm going to go in with the scallops. You're going to hear the sizzle. I'll try to speak louder as the scallops are sizzling, but we love that sizzle in the pan. That's what we want, right? That's what we want, is that sizzle. And I can see the scallops are browning, and scallops are going to cook very fast. Again, if you want to use something else like salmon, a little salmon medallion is also going to cook very fast. It's going to be the same step. Nice and dry, seasoned in the hot pan. So our scallops are sizzling away. I'm going to have a look at them. We want color. Now they're not quite there, so I'm going to let them go. And in the meantime, I've got some cauliflower florets. I've just taken a head of cauliflower and cut it into, I don't know, that's like lemon-sized pieces. And then with the florets, we just want to slice them, and I'll show you close up. We want slices of cauliflower. So just like that, just slices of cauliflower, okay? Very, very easy to do. This is a super simple dish. At the end, it looks pretty fancy, pretty elegant, but it's very simple. Okay, so our scallops are sizzling away in the pan. I wish we had smell-o-vision because the smell of these roasting scallops, fantastic. So now I'm just turning them over. I think in my recipe it says around 90 seconds, but it's really when you get a little bit of caramelization on the bottom of the scallop. And you don't want to overcook scallops, as you really don't want to overcook salmon. So a little salmon medallion might take another minute longer, and that's it. I like my salmon a little medium rare. If you like it a little more well done, then you leave it in a little bit longer. So I've turned the scallops. The scallops are all turned over. They're nicely caramelized. I'm going to slice up one more cauliflower while we're waiting for those scallops. Basically, what we're going to do, we're just browning the scallops, and then we're going to brown this cauliflower. And then we're going to build a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc butter sauce in the pan with a little fresh tarragon. So our scallops are, I'm going to call those as pretty much done. So hopefully you can see that, but it's slightly browned on top. So a little caramelization on top. So that's exactly what we're looking for. So we're going to leave the pan going, and we're going to go to our next move, which is caramelizing the cauliflower. We're going to leave the oil that's in the pan, and inside, in the surface of my pan, there's little bits of brown stuff from the scallop, and that's all really good flavor. You want that stuff. So now I'm going to go into the pan with our cauliflower, and we're just going to roast that, again, in the same oil that was in the pan. And once I get this sliced cauliflower in the pan, we're going to season that. So again, we're going to go a little bit of salt. And a little bit of pepper. And we're just going to let that, caramelize just like the scallops. And roasted or caramelized cauliflower is absolutely wonderful. For any vegetarians out there, you can take a whole cauliflower and slice it and make a steak out of it. And you can roast that in the pan. You can put it on the grill. You can spice it up with some chili oil and mint and stuff, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's almost like you're eating something very meaty. It's really, really satisfying. Cauliflower is very underrated, but I love it. I love cooking with cauliflower. So our cauliflower is caramelizing. I'm going to put, I think the recipe said a little more oil, so I am going to go a little more oil on the cauliflower. And it's caramelizing in the pan. And you know what? If you don't enjoy eating cauliflower, carrots, if you cut carrots into nice batons or fingers shape and roast those in the pan, roasted carrots are amazing. And again, carrots and scallops, carrots and salmon, amazing. So if cauliflower, if it's not your thing, you can certainly use almost any other vegetable.
Robert,
Robert,
can I ask you a question here?
Yes.
So you were talking about the scallops, and I'm wondering how you source that seafood and if that's important to you, that it's harvested in a humane or ecologically conscious way. And in particular, I guess, scallops and salmon and other products that you might use.
It is very, very important to me. So the project that I'm working on in Los Angeles, I spend a tremendous amount of my time the last month working on sourcing. And sourcing not for the best price, but the best product that is sustainable, which will include scallops. So these scallops, these are actually wild caught. And when it comes to any fish or seafood, wild caught is always best. So as a chef, the number one thing for me is ingredients. Find the very best ingredients and then just simply prepare them. That's really half the battle, is getting the very, very best ingredients. And wild food is always the best food. It's the most flavorful, it's sustainable. So that's a great question, Nancy. Very, very important to a lot of chefs. So I'm going to show you this cauliflower now. It's very hot, so I don't want to burn my fingers. I'm going to use what we call this fish spatula. So you can see the cauliflower is nicely caramelized now. Okay?
Looks delicious.
So we're going to take it, and it smells delicious. So we're going to take that. We're going to take that out of the pan. We're going to take that out of the pan. I've actually got too much oil in the pan now. I'm going to turn my heat down a little bit. And we're going to, so you can see in the pan, it looks pretty dark on camera, but it's a nice dark brown, and that's flavor in the bottom of the pan. So we're going back on the heat, and I've got the heat right now is at 320 degrees. Here's the raisins that were macerated in the Sauvignon Blanc. So in the bowl is the Sauvignon Blanc. We're going to deglaze the pan. So now we're making sauce. And sauce is very simple. And in the French culinary technique, making sauce is pretty much always the same. It's deglazing the pan with wine, or if you're cooking meat, you might be making a brandy sauce. So you flame it with brandy. So now we deglaze the pan. Oh, I think I'm supposed to add shallots. We're going to put some shallots in now. Yeah. We're going to put some shallots in. See, I'm not following my own recipe.
I was just going to say that. You're not following the recipe.
We're just having fun. So you can see, we've deglazed the pan, and I'm actually going to get some of these brown bits off the bottom. We call that fond, F-O-N-D, in French culinary terms, and that's good, flavorful stuff. So the wine is actually reduced, and there's shallots in there. And so now what we want to do is we want to stir in a little bit of butter, and I'll try to be gentle on the amount of butter, but I do cook in the French style.
Butter's better, Robert. Butter is good.
So we're going to go in with the butter, and this is Strauss Family Dairy, and they're in Marshall, California. They make amazing organic butter, organic cream. It's fantastic. So we're going to take our heat down a little bit. I've now got the heat at 240, and we're just gently swirling the butter into our juices in the pan. And this is emulsifying the butter into the reduced wine. Okay? And that's the start of our sauce. And, you know, I'm going to go a little more butter. Yeah.
While Robert is adding a little more butter and whisking that in, Nova, we've had a couple of questions. Could you repeat the name of the non-alcoholic spirit that you use?
Sure. So this is called Seedlip. They have 3 different flavors, and I bought them all while I was pregnant just to see, you know, how good it is. Because I've always been a little bit disappointed with a lot of the non-alcoholic things that are available, and this is fantastic. It's absolutely the best I've ever had. So this is their Spice 94. They also have one that's called Citrus that's got a lot of really intense citrus flavors. So if you're a gin lover, that one is definitely something to check out. Also, the third one is called Garden, and it tastes like fresh peas. So if you've ever like grown and shelled fresh peas like that, it's that very fresh green flavor almost, but it's kind of herbal as well. And so playing with them, mixing and matching them, sometimes I'll just put like soda water together with one of the flavors, but there's no alcohol in it, but it is a distilled product. So I really love it because you really taste the quality of the ingredients and the distillation process. And so it doesn't seem, it seems like you are getting a real cocktail without the alcohol. So that's really nice. And you can order it directly off of their website. I don't get any, I'm not a paid spokesperson for them at all. I just really love them. And so that's why I tell people about them. In fact, my best friend is pregnant right now. And when she told me she was pregnant, I ordered all 3 things and sent it to her. And I was like, here you go. You're going to need some cocktails, but you can't drink while you're pregnant. So this is the next best thing.
That's great. Well, before we cut back to Robert, just a second, I do want to let our viewers know that after the event, we will be sure to share Nova's recipes for the aperitifs with you. So have no fear, that will be on its way. Okay, Robert, so where are you at?
Okay, so we've got the sauce built in the pan. Just a very quick recap. We deglaze the pan with the wine that we macerated the raisins in. We let that reduce a little bit, and then we montate, big fancy word for we stirred in some butter. You want to do that at pretty low temperature so the butter doesn't separate. It actually emulsifies, and that makes your sauce. And so that's the point we're at. Our scallops are cooked. Our cauliflower is roasted. We're now going to put the scallops and cauliflower into the warm sauce. We're going to do that right now. We're almost there. So my pan right now is at 200 degrees. So it's not going to boil. It's just keeping everything warm. So our scallops are going back in the pan.
Is that on a gas stove so that we could all kind of figure out where on our stoves the dial should be?
So it's not on a gas stove right now. So on a gas stove, I would suggest that this is, right now, this is pretty low. It's a low flame, okay? When we're searing the scallops, if you're on a gas stove, we're going high flame. We want that pan hard. We want to get that sear, okay? So we've got our scallops back in the pan. I'm going to put our roasted cauliflower back in the pan. Again, the sauce in the pan. So now the cauliflower and the scallops are really soaking up all the sauces, getting fantastic. I'm gonna season this sauce. I'm gonna put a few drops of lemon juice into the sauce. Just a little bit. We want acid. Like the acid with this rich butter, so the acid cuts the fat of the butter. It brings the whole dish into balance. If you're cooking at home and you're making something and it tastes too rich and too heavy on the palate, you need to add acid. That can be lemon juice, that can be vinegar. As a chef, we always think of seasoning as salt, pepper, acid, fat. If something is too acidic, it's too bright on the palate, that's when you had to add some more butter, a little bit of olive oil, something to cut that acid. Okay, so everything's warmed up. We're going to take a few of our macerated raisins. We're going to put those in the pan. And they're going to have a wonderful flavor from the Sauvignon Blanc. I've got some chopped fresh tarragon. We're going to go into the sauce with that. I'm going to season this sauce a little bit salt, a little bit of pepper, and we're getting really close to putting it on the plate. I do have some lemon zest, and you can add the lemon zest now. You can zest it over the scallops at the end. Again, I prepped everything up so that it was really simple. You can actually prep this whole dish up the day before, keep all the ingredients in the cooler, and then just cook right at the end. So everything is in the pan, nicely roasted, kind of, bathing in that sauce. And now we're going to go to the plate. We're going to go to the plate. So what we want to do, wow, this cauliflower is so beautiful. It's so nicely caramelized. The flavor on that is going to be fantastic.
Definitely makes me hungry, Robert, for sure.
Thank you. We're just going to put 3 pieces of cauliflower down, and I think in the recipe I said 3 scallops is a portion, and this is an appetizer portion. You want to make it an entree or main course, just double the amount of scallops, or use more salmon. Or cooking is really should be fun, and recipes. In my work and professional environment, we follow them to a T because we want food to be consistent. Again, cooking at home and with friends, I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I just want to have fun, which is what we're doing this evening. So I have put the scallop, 3 pieces of cauliflower and the scallops on top. I'm going to show that to you like this.
That looks amazing.
I'm just on a very simple black plate. And then we're going to take some of the sauce with the raisins and the tarragon. And we're just going to spoon that over top, and I'll show you this in a second. So we want a few raisins, a little bit of the sauce. And it sounds maybe kind of different, right? Raisins and cauliflower and scallops, but you got to trust me, it's amazing, okay? It's fantastic. So now we're going to garnish it. We got tarragon in the sauce. So I've got some nice fresh tarragon leaves. Yeah, we're just going to put a few tarragon leaves on there, just like that. Just kind of make it look like they've fallen on the scallops. And I have some fresh dill. I don't even know if this is in the recipe, but I got some fresh dill. Let's put a couple dill sprigs on there, just like that.
Dill is perfect with fish.
Dill is amazing with fish. Mm-hmm. It really is. And then, just because we need more fat, no, I'm just joking. We don't need more fat, but I've got some beautiful extra virgin olive oil from a producer in Italy called Frantoia. And I like to put just a few drops on the plate. And then to finish it off, I've got some Maldon salt. Maldon salt is a salt from Great Britain, huge crystals. Yeah. So you just need a couple. And what it just gives you this burst of flavor and this wonderful crunch texture. So this is what we call finishing seasoning. Very important that we put a little bit of salt on everything we finish, and it's just a few grains, and that's it. So if I can tilt that so you can see it, there we go.
That looks really beautiful. That's delicious.
That's lovely, Robert. Robert, I have 2 quick questions from our audience before we move to Nova, who's going to help us pair some wine with that. Jennifer wanted to know if capers or anchovies would also work as an acid.
Capers would be fantastic because they are very bright. Capers go amazing with fish. They go fantastic with scallops, and you can use them a couple ways. You can just put them into the sauce right at the end, just out of the brine, drain them and put them in the sauce. To have a lot of fun with capers, take them out of the brine, dry them, put a little bit of vegetable oil in a fry pan over like medium heat, and put them in the oil and let them fry until they're crispy and crunchy. And they take on this amazing, it's like they're kind of salty, which is fantastic. You get this burst and this crunch. Fried capers, if you've never had them, they're the easiest thing to make. Fry them in oil till they're crispy, put them on paper towel to drain it, and put them in salads, put them on your fish. Amazing.
Great. And one just super fast question. Jan wanted to know, do you cook the butternut squash the same way that you cook the scallops? So
Yes,
if you're going to substitute it vegetarian.
That's a great question. So obviously butternut squash, or if you're using celery root, certainly more dense than scallop. It's going to take longer to cook. So you're going to want to caramelize the butternut squash or the celery root, and then turn the heat down and just let them pan roast until when you can put a knife into it, there's no resistance. Or a little bit of tiny resistance, and it's al dente, and then you continue with the recipe.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'm so upset that you're not here so that we can help enjoy this food. That's awesome. So one of the things I think is really important when you think about wine and food pairing, and Robert just put this amazing dish together, is do the flavors marry? And so Robert used Sauvignon Blanc to marinate the raisins. And so for this dish, Sauvignon Blanc is a no-brainer because you've got Sauvignon Blanc in the dish, and Sauvignon Blanc next to it would be just a perfect pairing there. If you don't have a Sauvignon Blanc, you could probably do something very similar with a Riesling. Again, something very bright and acidic. Like Robert said, you want something, if it's a very heavy, creamy dish, you need acid to cut through that. And you can do that with wine also, so you have that brightness and acidity there, which is one of the reasons why some of these white wines with really crisp, fresh acid work so well with these dishes that are a little bit heavier. Obviously, this is not a super heavy dish. There's a lot of butter in it, so that needs to be counteracted, but with the acid. But it's not a very heavy, creamy dish. So having a lighter style of white wine is perfect to go with this. Again, when you're thinking about balancing wine and food, you can really throw out the whole like red wine with red meat and white wine with white meat or fish. As long as the food is balanced with acid and salt, like Robert was saying, you can pair almost any wine with any dish. And if you don't believe me, definitely try a little exercise where you just make some unsalted chicken and unsalted beef and unsalted fish, and then add your salt and your lemon to whatever wine you're pairing, and just try it with a bunch of different wines. And you can see how you can really make any dish work with any type of wine just by making sure that salt and acid is really balanced. But the key things I think is marrying the flavors of the wine with the flavors in the dish. So if you're using a wine in a dish, that's a no-brainer. But if you're not using a wine in a dish and you want to find things that are similar, you might want to see if you're using a dish with maybe some tropical fruit, like a mango or something, maybe you want a little bit of a riper Chardonnay with that has some of that tropical fruit notes. If you're using a red sauce with tomatoes and more earthy notes, then maybe you want a Pinot Noir. Or if you want a big steak, maybe you want a meatier characteristic like a big Syrah or something like that. So I really like to pair the flavors of the wine with the flavors that are found in the food. But definitely don't get hung up on the white wine with white or lighter meats and red wine with red meats, because you can really mix and match pretty easily.
Yeah, that's great advice, Nova. I think the same way you do. I try to pair the flavors in the food with the wine. Obviously, we talked about the importance of acid and salt. 100% true. I've had the pleasure of doing some amazing tastings where, with the use of salt and acid, we've had steak with Sauterne, and it works. It's absolutely crazy to think that way. To have fun with food and wine, and with this particular dish, again with scallops or salmon or vegetables, again like the butternut squash, You can do the same recipe and use Pinot Noir.
Mm-hmm.
And a red wine butter sauce, Beurre Rouge, as opposed to Beurre Blanc, is absolutely fantastic. So then we're going to start pairing red wine or Pinot Noir with the scallops, which maybe a lot of people aren't going to think about. As Nova said, this white wine with fish and red wine only, that's out the window now. Mm-hmm. So the idea for me with cooking and pairing wine is, A, keep it simple. And this dish is actually pretty simple. Keep it simple. Cook with the wine that you're going to be drinking. Of course, if we're opening up an 82 Petrus, I don't think we're going to put that in the sauce. But cook with the wine that you're going to be drinking, and keep it simple, and have fun with it, and just think about the acid and the salt, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I think that cook with the wine you're going to be drinking is so important, because there's so much, you see these things, cooking wine, or I'm going to just buy a cheap bottle of wine. Only cook with the wine that you would put in a glass and drink it by itself. Like, again, back to the ingredients, like Robert was saying, you want to have the best ingredients. And in winemaking, it's exactly the same. We look for the best fruit, we look for the best barrels, we look for the best yeast, and having those amazing ingredients are part of a critical piece of winemaking, because you cannot make the fruit any better than it was when it came through the winery, but you can definitely screw it up. So you want to have the highest quality of fruit coming in as possible to make the best quality wine. And so for me, that's one of the key things of winemaking.
Nova, could you perhaps spend just a couple of minutes talking about pairing champagne with food? And then I've got some other questions to ask each of you.
Yeah, I love that question, pairing champagne with food. So again, like, champagnes are all about acid. And this bottle here is not champagne. This is one of my sparkling wines from California. But again, it's all about acid. So don't think of champagne as just something that you have at the beginning of a meal, or something that you drink for only celebrations. Like, we have champagne very often here with meals and dinners, but again, it's a lot of acid, so it goes well with things that have a lot of fat. Also, if it's a lighter dish, you want to look for something like a basic, what we call a non-vintage brut. So it would just be a basic house, a sparkling wine. If you want to go a little bit more in depth, you might want to look for a Blanc de Blanc. But if you have a really big meal and you need a big wine that goes up with it, look for a Blanc de Noir. So there's three varieties that are used in champagne. It's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. And even though they don't keep the skins on the Pinot Noir and the Pinot Meunier, they're both red varieties, and they have a lot of weight on the palate. And so adding a wine like that in with a larger dish that you're having for dinner, or a bigger, fatter dish, you're going to get a lot of weight from that wine. They're big wines, even though they're sparkling and even though they're white. So that's something to think about. There's a whole gradient on sparkling wine where you have, if you want something really bright and light and fresh, maybe you're going for a Prosecco. And remember, champagne and Prosecco are totally different wines from different countries, but the Prosecco is very budget friendly, at a little bit sweeter than you would typically see in a brut style champagne. And if you're making just a really simple dish or a salad or something like that, Prosecco probably is going to be a really great pairing. Whereas if you're making a dinner, having champagne, and particularly like a Blanc de Noir champagne, or even better, a vintage champagne. Those, I'd save those for special occasions. But just a basic champagne, or Blanc de Blanc or Blanc de Noir, you can really pair a lot of different foods with that, particularly things with mushrooms in it, because the Pinot Meunier can be very mushroomy. And so that actually will really work well. Like, one of my favorite dishes with champagne is like a hen of the woods mushroom with a cream and butter sauce with champagne. That's just beautiful.
That's great. You have such a deep knowledge, and it would really be remiss of me not to ask you to talk a little bit about your Master of Wine certification. It's really so incredible, and I would love for you to share a little bit about what that means in that experience with our audience.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think here in the US, there's a lot of confusion between Master Sommelier and Master of Wine. And Robert and I's good friend, Andrea Robinson, is a Master Somm. and I'm a master of wine. And so it's one of those things where, if I'm pouring a glass of wine and I spill a little bit on the side, I'm like, well, you should have gotten the master somm for the service part of it. Because masters of wine, we don't cover service. But what we do cover is all about the industry. So the business of wine, the production of wine, so viticulture and winemaking, sales, marketing. We also talk to contemporary issues, meaning like health and wine, environmental things. And then we have to identify 36 wines blind over the course of 3 days. And so it is a very rigorous exam. It goes over 4 days. And then at the end of that, you still have to do a research paper that can be up to 10,000 words. So it's quite a rigorous program. Right now, we're a little over 400 of us in the world. So it's a very elite group, but we like to keep wine very fun and very approachable. And so one of the things I love about being a master of wine is you can talk to people about wine, and everybody has questions about wine. You never walk into a room and go, hi, I'm a winemaker, I'm a master of wine, and people are like, oh, that's cool, and then walk away. Like, everybody wants to know something because there's so much to learn about wine. And I'm sure Robert has a very similar experience when he says, well, I'm a chef, and then he probably gets 15 different cooking questions, I'm sure. But that's what a master of wine is, and it really is just a fun thing for me to be able to give back now that I've achieved that certification, to help other people kind of demystify a wine.
So what was harder to get, the Master of Wine or your Bachelor of Science from Cornell?
Hands down, the Master of Wine. Like, I thought Cornell was the hardest thing that I would have gone through because it was hard. Like, I could have done that 3 times over compared to the Master of Wine, because only 3% of the people who start the program actually end up getting their Master of Wine. It's incredibly difficult. It took me 8 years to get it.
Wow. Robert, I'd love to hear a little bit from you about your experience with Bocuse d'Or. I know you were on the team in 1999, and so that's been a while, and you've now shifted your role as the head coach of the team. I'm sure people would love to hear a little bit about that. Can you share with us? Yeah,
so the Bocuse d'Or, obviously, as you mentioned at the top of the show, as they say, it is the most important culinary competition in the world. It's held in Lyon, France, every 2 years. The next one is scheduled for June next year. Let's hope we get there. So I competed in 1999 for Canada. I'm a dual citizen. So I stayed involved with the Canadian organization, even though I was living in the US, up until 2013. And I was residing in Napa. And so I love mentoring and helping young chefs and young cooks and guiding them through this incredible journey of the Bocuse d'Or, being at regional competition, national qualifying, Americas, and then to the final. And so I thought I was done with the Bocuse d'Or in 2013, and I was very, very fortunate to be having dinner one night at the French Laundry in Napa, and Thomas Keller, he's the president of the U.S. team, and I had known him for a few years and through the Bocuse d'Or, and he said, "Oh, so you're finished with the Canadian team?" I said, "Yes, chef," right? And he was like, "Would you join the American team?" And the joke is, when Thomas Keller asks you, there's just one answer, and it's yes, chef, right? So I was honored and humbled that he would ask me to help the U.S. team. So I was assistant coach with the team through 2015. We won silver, and in 2017 we actually won the Bocuse d'Or, and 2019, and then now through 2021. It is near and dear to my heart because I get to mentor young chefs, and for me, that even beyond cooking, that's the most important thing I can do, is pass on my knowledge. So it's an incredible journey. We have a full-time Bocuse d'Or training kitchen at the CIA campus in Napa, California. The team practices full-time. It is an incredibly rigorous competition Probably not as hard as MW Nova. I mean, that is, like hats off to you for that. So when we won in 2017 and placed silver in 2015, it kind of put the world on the culinary world on notice. You know, we have some incredibly talented chefs in this country, young chefs, and it opened the eyes up from the culinary world to what the U.S. is capable of. Of course, we have amazing, incredible restaurants in this country, and a few years ago, in the late 90s and early 2000s, to think that the U.S. could win that competition, and nobody would have had believed it. So it's incredible. It's held over 2 days in Lyon. 24 countries compete, 12 on each day. There's one judge from every country competing is on the jury. They have 12 identical kitchens. It's in a massive stadium. It's like a European soccer match. The fans from the countries are all painted up on their faces. The Swiss are all painted with their cowbells. It's crazy when you're in that arena, you can't even hear yourself. It's amazing. Every country has 5.5 hours to cook. They all have to use the same theme ingredients, as they say, and they tell you what those ingredients are a few months before, so it gives you time to develop your recipe. And then they start the kitchen at 10-minute intervals. So every 10 minutes the kitchen starts, and then 5 hours later food starts coming out, and the crowd is going nuts and crazy. And at the end of the day, the best cook wins. The best tasting food wins. For some crazy reason, I'm addicted to it.
I could definitely see how that would be addicting, for sure. Like, there's definitely kind of a thrill or an adrenaline rush, for the MW exam, because you're sitting there and you're like, so I could totally see that. We don't have the cowbells and stuff, but I think that would be cool.
Robert, I have another question for you as we're talking about the scope of your career. We have a lot of techies in the Bay Area and Cornellians in general. Can you tell us a little bit about the iQKitchen app? Yes.
So our company, iQKitchen, we initially developed technology. It's patented. It's a little hardware device that works in conjunction with an app, and it's all related to food safety. And it was originally designed for sous vide cooking. When you take a protein or vegetables and you vacuum seal it and put it in a water bath at a low temperature. Amazing technology, sous vide, fantastic. In the wrong hands, though, it can be very dangerous, because when you're putting protein in an anaerobic environment, I don't want to get too technical here, at a low temperature, then pathogens, particularly botulism, can flourish. And so it's all about time, temperature, and reaching pasteurization. So we patented technology that validates when food safety or pasteurization occurs within that sous vide bag. That was 6 years ago. We've gone on to develop numerous other technologies, all related to commercial kitchen food safety, and it's now being widely adopted. So it was out of necessity that myself and my partners, my business partner used to be my apprentice. This was 25 years ago. And I recognized like the first day that this guy's way too smart for the kitchen. So, fast forward, and he reaches out to me and says, I have this idea for technology. Will you help me? And of course I said yes. So we feel that the commercial kitchen is really one of the last areas of business or commerce where technology hasn't infiltrated. You still need to season food, and yes, there's robotics that's coming into play, but we saw that the the market was ripe for technology in the back of the house, as we say. All kinds of technology in the front of the house for managing customers and payment and POS systems, et cetera, et cetera. So that's iQKitchen.
That's great. Nova, before I know we're closing in on our time pretty quickly, but I want to ask you a couple of questions, and maybe you can think about these together. You have this incredible career for a major brand in the US, Constellation Brands, while at the same time managing your own winery, Trestle 31, on the East Coast. So you have an East Coast, foot in the East and 2 feet, and your home and your family in the West. Tell us a little bit about how you manage that and the pros and cons and just what's happening.
Oh, it's life is insane. That's just the way it goes. No, it's a lot of early mornings and late nights and weekends and things like that. But it's totally worth it. My husband and I, we've always had our dream of having our own winery. And so, this is our brand, Trestle 31. You can find it at trestle31.com. And we can ship to California. My apologies to those in Washington and Oregon. We can't ship there quite yet, but maybe eventually we will be able to. And it's a lot of work, but it's something that, being an entrepreneur is just putting the effort in and putting the time in and making sure that you're balancing things back and forth and making sure that the balls that absolutely will break if you drop them don't get dropped. And the balls that will bounce, well, maybe they bounce, but for me, family is the most important. And so finding the time for my kids and my husband, that's really critical. But I also love working with my husband because he's the one with all the crazy business ideas. And so we like to have fun, talking about them. And in fact, on my way out the door this morning, he goes, hey, we need to talk about putting a red out for Trestle 31 when you think about buying red grapes this next harvest. And how do we want to do that? And I'm looking at it. I've got 10 minutes to drop my infant off at daycare. I'm like, I really want to talk about this, but we can't do it right now because I got to get Tristan to school. So it's just managing that back and forth and determining, okay, when's time, when is personal time, when is family time, when is business time. And then I have my day job, which is, not insignificant. And so managing all of that, it really is about time management and determining, what can give and when my deadlines are. So that's really the most important thing to me, is making sure that the family stays together and stays happy and healthy, and then everything else kind of latches on to that central point. So definitely check out the website at Trestle 31. I have my own website, Cadamatre.com. I've been blogging for 10 years trying to answer people's wine questions. And so if I haven't answered your question at a blog that I've already written, please do reach out. My email's on there. And I'm happy to answer questions. If you had a question tonight and we didn't get to it, let me know. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on my blog. So I'm happy to answer questions from people, because my goal is to really make wine an easy thing to think about and understand for everybody. It should not be this big, mysterious, intimidating thing. So to me, that's really important.
That's great. Well, we'll be sure to share all of those social media platforms with everybody to be able to reach out to you. I know that as we start to come to a close, we would love to ask you to lead us all in a toast as we kick out 2020 and look forward to 2021. So we'll ask everybody to raise a glass, and Nova, why don't you lead us in a little bit of a toast and the look forward.
Sure, absolutely. Everybody, have a happy, healthy, wonderful Christmas. Enjoy your time with your loved ones, and really take these times, the last couple weeks of 2020, to really reflect on the positive aspects of this year. And I'm sure everybody can think of at least one. I know there was a lot of stuff going on, but everybody's got to have at least one thing that they can latch onto. And may January 1st be the worst day in 2021, and it only goes up from there. Cheers to all of you. Robert, I'm so loving food, and I hope we get to hang out again soon. And Nancy, thank you for having us on.
Our pleasure. That was just such a great presentation, and I know we could go on for so long that I'm sorry that we are nearing the end of our time. And I really want to thank you both for joining us and helping us ring in a new and certainly a healthier new year. I'd like to note that we started tonight's session with a recording by the Cornell University Wind Symphony, and I certainly hope that all of our guests enjoyed that tonight. We're going to close the program with two special videos. The first is It's Beginning to Feel a Lot Like Christmas by Cornell Tirana, which is a South Asian a cappella group, and Cornell's alma mater, performed by alumni around the world. So until we all meet again, and hopefully in person sooner rather than later, I wish all of you the best of health and in happiness.
One, two, three. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. Take a look at the 5 and 10, glistening once again, with candy canes and silver lanes aglow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Toys in every store. But the prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door.
A pair of hop-along boots and a pistol that shoots is the wish of Barney and Ben.
Delta will talk and we'll go for a walk is the hope of Janice and Jen. And Mom and Dad can hardly wait for school to start again. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.